Great. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is Hope After Brain Injury, starting a brand new series called The Impact of Influence. Today is a very special time because I have two incredible leaders, ladies, with me today to really connect to you as our family audience. Some of you may be familiar with them, others, you'll get to know them. And for you who do know them, you'll go a little deeper to get them to know them better. With me is Dr. Mary Carlile and Dr. Rosemary Randi Dubiel. So ladies, welcome to the show today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Patty.
You are so welcome. So to this program, how about Dr. Carlile, why don't you start us off first, and let you guys just introduce yourselves to everyone, and maybe not only tell your name, but tell us something that about the brain that so amazes you.
Okay. Well, I am Dr. Mary Carlile, and I am a retired physician. I was the former medical director of brain injury services at Baylor Institute for Rehabilitation. And during my tenure there, I was fortunate enough to have Dr. Randi Dubiel as one of the residents coming up in her training. And so that's how I met her. And as far as something about the brain that amazes me, it's something I don't understand and we can't manipulate, but the brain has this capacity to rewire, and parts of the brain can take over for other parts. I wish we could control that, but I can promise you I've seen it. And I was reminded of a patient of mine who had a very bad brain injury, and his brain was swelling so much that they were worried that the brain was going to herniate and kill him. So he had to go back for several neurosurgeries in which they removed parts of the brain. And he actually lost the motor strip on one side of his brain that controls the movement on the other side. And so technically, he didn't even have the part of the brain that you're supposed to have to be able to walk. And he walked out of our hospital. I remember the radiologists were so amazed. I got a call when I sent him over for scans, and the radiologist was like, "What happened to this guy?" You know, and they were just astounded by that. And then I told them the story of parts of his brain have taken over for what he lost.
Yeah, I often would say miracles walk out of Baylor Rehab. Oh, so true. Dr. Dubiel, introduce yourself, please.
Yes, so I'm Randi Dubiel, and I am the current medical director of brain injury services here at Baylor Institute for Rehabilitation in Dallas. And I'm a physiatrist and a brain injury medicine physician. And so basically what that means is I really work towards getting patients and their families kind of back to life after something usually unexpected happens to their brain, whether it be from trauma or a stroke or some other insult to the brain. I've been at Baylor, like Dr. Carlile said, for many years. I got my 20-year pin this summer. And so I did my residency and then took over the position after Dr. Carlile retired. You know, I would say there's so much that's fascinating about the brain to me. I think one of the biggest things just in the day-to-day dealings with people after and individuals after they've had a brain injury is just how different everyone can be from each other. Meaning that, like Dr. Carlile said, you can have an image that may show damage to a certain part of the brain where you would expect the patient to have some kind of difficulty or impairment, but it's just not always the case. And then you can also have two people that look very similar in their injury, but completely function different and recover different. So that to me is still an amazing phenomenon that we, as much as we know about the brain, there remains still so much that we don't know, especially how it translates into how people function and how they recover after illness and injury.
Mm-mm. That's really nice. You know, and even talking about that, Dr. Dubiel and Dr. Carlile, just saying that word function. And that reminds me of our very topic today, the impact of influence. Because look at the way that each of you and so many others in the world have influenced and impacted the function of your life, whether it's professional or personal or, you know, in all the different means. So how about, since our topic in our series is the impact of influence, let's start off with influence. So Dr. DeVille, how about you go first? Why don't each of you talk about how the influence of the other uh, had in your life, developed in your life, cultivated things in your life. Just talk about how Dr. C, Dr. Carlisle, or whatever your nickname is for her, uh, influenced you. And then we'll have Dr. C.
Well, I can honestly say that Dr. Carlisle is one of the major influences in my life, especially when it comes to my career choice and kind of how I think and go about my workday. So I say this trying to holding back tears, and she knows this. But I was actually a medical student on rounds. Kind of in one of my rotations, we kind of, when you're a medical student, you kind of go around and you practice different specialties to kind of learn what fits you best and what you really enjoy. And so you do maybe some pediatrics and some internal medicine. And I happen to do those, but I also spent a month doing rehabilitation actually here at Baylor. And I spent probably not that much with Dr. Carlisle, but I think I rotated with her maybe a few days during a week. And I specifically remember the experience. And at the time, I hadn't decided that I wanted to be a rehab physician. But I knew I loved medicine, and I liked complex decision making, and loved connection with my patients and their families. And I got to see how she operated, just a glimpse at that point, and operated in a sense of her connection with her families, the staff, the other clinicians, and her patients, and was very inspiring to me, wanting to go into rehabilitation. And then when I did my residency, I was just sold on taking care of this particular type of patient. I like taking care of everybody, and I really still do. I will, manage most anything that comes across, but my true love is taking care of people that are going through issues and difficulties after brain injury. And I really think that it was the influence of Dr. Carlisle that really inspired me. That showed me, how you can deal with such difficult situations and very kind of unpredictable situations in a thoughtful and caring way, that you really feel like, that you don't see necessarily other specialties or other doctors being able to do. So that was kind of the spark that turned me on to not only rehabilitation, but specifically working with patients after traumatic brain injury and brain injury in general. So it was a huge influence.
Huge influence. So Dr. Carlisle, after hearing that and what you've put together, talk with us and the family audience about how the influence of Randy Dubiel and Dr. Dubiel played such an influential role in your decision.
She absolutely was a superstar in my eyes. I had never worked with a resident before that was that caring, that empathetic, that kind. She really had it all. She was also super smart, but humble about it. And I think that's so attractive in a person when they're pretty and they don't know it, and she was like that. She was brilliant, but she no ego was involved in anything. It was just what's going to benefit the patient and the family. And if I can share this, I hope you don't mind, Randy, but Dr. Dubiel's mother had passed away early in her life, and I felt like she had a special gift for meeting the empathy that was so needed by patients and their families who were going through this tremendously difficult time. And she just said something that reminded me, in our specialty, the medicine is so broad, but, some doctors, like, you'll go to the doctor and they'll go, well, I'm an orthopedist and your bones are fine. See you later, and even with internal medicine and many of the specialties don't really address the whole person. And I, like Dr. Dubiel, my love in medical school was internal medicine, and that's where I performed the most outstandingly in that area. So I never wanted to give up being a doctor. I didn't want to just order physical therapy and say, see you later. I looked on my role as being the medical doctor. I called in specialists when needed, absolutely. But I was the one who was looking at the big picture and trying to train my therapist to and the nursing staff, looking for it. Like, if they have clear fluid draining from their nose, be sure and let us know. Just educating them so that we all worked as a big team. And that's exactly the way Dr. Dubiel was in her interactions. So I was just delighted when I got to work with her and when she expressed interest. And she was a big influence on me. I used to ask myself, am I being as thorough as Dr. Dubiel would be? And so I tried to live up to her as well. She's really outstanding, always has been, always will be.
Wow. Listen to that incredible, influential, mutual influence. Whew. Huge, huge. So as we keep moving toward impact, so there's the influence of Dr. Dubiel, Dr. Carlile, the influence. All right, keep walking with us along this life path, this journey, and let's talk about impact. So talk with us. This time, Dr. Carlile, why don't you start us first? Let's talk about really that power of impact. And this time, let's go a little deeper and to take the professional genre, and also let's take it to the personal, like you were touching on just then, Dr. Carlile, and let's just put together some of that, those, because in your mind you have vital points along life's journey where each other plays a real important role in that impact that even affects choices, decisions in all sorts of ways, expected, unexpected. So, Dr. Carlile, I pass the mic to you, all yours.
Okay. Well, Randi, Dr. Dubiel did have a wonderful impact on my life in many ways. One of the things, I had worked hard, threw myself into my career because I was married for 42 years when I lost my husband, but we didn't have any children. So I didn't have to worry about going home and feeding the children and putting them to bed at night. So I just put 100% of myself into that. But I saw that somehow she was able to balance her life. She has two. You haven't had any more boys, have you? Just two? Okay. She has two of the cutest, most wonderful sons. And she did find that balance. I felt like her. She worked very hard at doing it. And so she was sort of, to me, I thought, I want to also not give my life 100%. My husband was in ill health, and that was driving me toward retirement. And it enabled me to make that decision. She impacted my life because I thought, I've worked so hard getting our foot in the door on the TBI model systems. And I was just fearful that it would just, that no one else would care about it as much. And she's taken the program and everything, the research and everything, to a much higher level. But I could see in her that she was able to do the balance in her life. And I saw the importance for all of us to, you're still a person, you're a doctor, but you're a person, and you're responsible for the patients under your care, but you're also responsible for the people in your family that you love. And so I was worried that she was not going to take the job, and then I wasn't sure I would be able to retire in peace. But she did agree to take it, and she's done an outstanding job. So I was right. She was the one. And I'd like to take full credit, but very little of it is mine. Dr. Wilson had a big hand in that as well, in choosing her. But I remember we had our overlap. We were going to have 1 month in which she was going to shadow me while she picked up the reins. And I think after the first day, I was pretty useless. She had it. And she was in 100%. She took over. She did everything. I would hang out in medical records and just talk to people during that month of overlap. But and truthfully, I've never. She has just done it on her own. She was and is capable of everything, and she has taken it to a new level. And I have nothing but joy about that. And to be able to walk away from something that was so precious to me. Now I'm going to cry. And know that it's in such capable hands has just been a gift from God. And I honestly have not worried at all about the program. She's carried it and just done an outstanding, extraordinary job. Thank you.
Oh, gosh, thank you.
Ooh.
Patti, this is very healing for me.
Amen.
Thank you for all those kind words. Wow.
Dr. Dubiel, what about that impact of Dr. Carlile?
Yes, well, I mean, the impact lives on. I tell this to Mary often, and we actually had a meeting and we had some t-shirts made with this saying on it. But in my head, most every day, if not many times a day, comes across what would Mary do? And I listen to that voice in my head, and it's not just at work. It's how I interact with professionals, when I'm doing research duties, when I'm, taking care of my boys or my family. Her influence continues to be impactful in my life on a daily basis. I want to touch on a couple of things that she mentioned. Probably the best month of my whole career was the time that we were together. It was like dream world, because you get to round with, not only your mentor and friend, but just the expert in the field, and you get to do it in just a very collaborative way. So Mary, if you ever want to come back and do some rounds again, come on.
I think not. I think so.
I also remember that month was October, and at the, her last day was October 31st, which is a big day here at Baylor Rehab, and also on the Dr. Carlile / Dubiel team. We take it very seriously. It's competitive here amongst the teams of doctors and therapists and nurses. And so that year we dressed up as Dr. Carlile. And she didn't know. And so all of the therapists and myself and the whole team was dressed up as a version of Dr. Carlile. And it was pretty hilarious and fun. So you still live on, Mary. We've won the last 2 years for the costume contest here at the hospital. And then, I do say, every day I walk up, the unit is named after Mary Carlile. It's the Dr. Mary Carlile Brain Injury Unit. And so your impact lives on, not only through me, but people ask, who's Mary Carlile? My patients and my families. Many of the staff obviously know your legacy. um, you know, as Mary said, she opened the doors for this program. She put us, you know, not only on the map, but elevated our center to giving just outstanding, excellent care for patients with brain injury. You know, it's been when she jokes about whether she was, you know, whether I was take over the job or not, there was some time between I finished my residency before Dr. Carlile retired, and there was some time that I spent covering for her on her service while she did her research duties. And then I had an opportunity that was not on the Dallas campus, and I had my second child, and I was really enjoying that particular practice. And you know, she came to me and said, "Are you ready? You know, I'm at a point where I need to retire. You know, I feel ready to turn it over to you." And I really had to think about it because I was so happy with what I was doing. I couldn't imagine, you know, well, I love this so much. I can't do what you've done because I'm not you. And so there was some caution there, but it was the best decision of my life. And or at least one of them. I shouldn't say the best because I love my husband, and that was a really good decision too. You know, I'm forever grateful. I often tell people, you know, I really have my dream job. I wanted to do brain injury medicine so badly. And, you know, Dr. Carlile teed it up to this, you know, great program, you know, like she said, opened us up to a very exclusive and kind of group of researchers. And we've been able to do a lot of collaborative work for the betterment of survivors and individuals that are living with brain injury, but also those people that are in their family circles. So you know, your impact, again, in just my personal life is daily and multiple times through the day. But also it's still felt here at our institution, and that carries on through all of the current and future patients that we take care of and their families. You know, we newly have our now second brain injury fellow. And so, you know, I too feel like we are having a hand in training the future of clinicians, because I too see a time when my you know, career will change or wind down. And I much like Dr. Carla, am so passionate about what happens, not only to the people, but to this institution and to our program, that you know, we want to leave it in good shape and know that it's going to be tended to after, you know, after we move on. So I'm just kind of just a lucky lady, and I do think I have my dream job, and I say it most every day.
Glad to hear that.
Not every day is exactly what you would love it to be, but I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to get, you know, a look into people's lives, and I get to know them at some of the hardest moments in their lives, and kind of navigate that with them, you know, both medically and emotionally, and I'm grateful to Dr. Carlile for showing me that this can be done.
That's right. Those opportunities, just like you said, that professional relationship, personal relationship, just life in general, in every attitude. But just like you said, of laying hold of the moment too, of those opportunities. And the way even Dr. Dubiel, when you talked about when Carlile was ready to retire, he asked you, "Are you ready?" Oh, you had a little caution there. And however, the next step was taken. And so the living legacy lives on through you, Dr. C, and those who will follow you, Dr. DeBell. So on that note, how about we pass along some contact information? Let's say someone wants to touch base or send a word of encouragement. What's the best way for them to go about this? Dr. DeBell?
Yeah, I would say for me, probably the best way to get a full list of contacts and resources resources would be to go to bswrehab.com. There you'll find lots of resources, not only about brain injury, but also about rehabilitation, community resources, contact information for myself, and other, clinicians and staff members. There's links to what research is going on. There's links to our clinical programs. So I think that's a really good resource to begin with.
Okay. bswrehab.com.
Yes.
Great. All right. Dr. Carlile, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with
Very different.
you?
I would probably say Facebook, and you can message me on Facebook. And I've actually had former patients do that. And I'm friends with lots of former patients and their families on Facebook. I am no longer in the field, don't pretend to be an expert anymore. And so I'm not someone, that can really give you medical advice at this point, because the field has grown and continues to, because of the research that's being done. But on a personal level, I'm always happy to give encouragement and see how people are doing. And some of the staff people too, from Baylor are my friends. And I love getting to say happy birthday and see pictures at Halloween. And so it's all a joy.
Neat. And Dr. Carlile, would you spell your name for?
Yes, it's Mary is Mary, and then Carlile is Carlile, no S in it.
Okay, no S. Carlile on Facebook. Great. All right. So as we finish up, let me just open up and give you guys the time for some closing comments. Maybe a challenge, maybe a thought, some tidbit of wisdom, or some off-the-wall humor, but something that if you could pass along to the audience right now, something they could take with them, and whatever field they're in, whatever situation they might be facing, what would you like to pass along as we wrap up our time for the impact of influence, sponsored by Hope After Brain Injury? Dr. Carlile, Dr. Dubiel, whichever one would like to go first, all yours.
I've got an idea.
Great.
Something I wanted to share. I remember when I was in, I'll refer to it as the hot seat that Dr. Dubiel is in now. And my sister, who lives in Denver, she was always worried about me. She's a stay-at-home mom. And she's like, oh my goodness, you just work so hard and the long hours and all of that. And she said, what if you don't live to have a retirement and all this? And I said, I'll be fine, because I have enjoyed, even though they're very hard times, I feel like my life has mattered. And in addition to, the life you have with your family, to be able, you didn't change the whole world, but one person at a time, you're able to touch them. And I think the wonderful thing about rehabilitation medicine, especially in brain injury, is we do cross the line. We have the professional person that we are. We have the medical responsibility that we carry, but we also become friends with our patients and families. And what I would tell my sister is that my patients, and she would ask me, isn't it so sad to see a young person in the prime of their life suddenly, I always think of all these examples, someone who was a National Merit Scholar, and now their family's going to have to care for them for the rest of their life. And I would feed off of the families and the patients and the love that was so intense. And I could see such examples of a Christian faith, or whatever their faith was. And it's very different if you're dealing with someone who has no spiritual persona, and they're just dealing with things in a very different way. More anger, you would see more inability to accept. And yet you would see people that you would look at it and go, oh, this situation is the saddest one I've ever seen. But in families and patients of faith, they could handle it. They showed a strength. They showed a courage. They remade their life into something different. And I want to say to Patti Foster, if I'm having a bad day, I usually get, not infrequent text messages of what you're doing now. And I feed off of that. I'm old and I have health issues, and I'll be 72 my next birthday. But I just say, you go, girl, because you take the word you've taken, an incredibly difficult situation, and really change the focus of your life into an ambassador of goodwill and faith and acceptance, and looking at, as we all need to do, look outside ourselves. I would say if there's one piece of advice I would give to someone going through a difficult time, turn outside yourself. Go find someone to help. Go volunteer at your local food pantry. Serve meals to the homeless. I live in a wonderful community in Enid, Oklahoma, which has so many opportunities to serve. So it's very different. I was a better doctor than I am a cook, but I still go and help whenever I can to the welcome table or our manna program at one of the churches here. And there are always opportunities to serve, and they're healing for all of us.
Huge, huge. And I bet they love you.
Oh, not the food, but they're pretty nice to me.
Oh, all right. Dr. Dubiel, closing comments.
Yes, I think all of that was so well said by Dr. Carlile. And I think one thing that strikes me in kind of, my day-to-day is it doesn't have to be a big thing to create influence and impact. It can be small things, how you treat someone else, how you hold the elevator for someone, how, I'm just continuously amazed how, myself or my team, we're just doing what we do, and the gratitude of people for what we've done that seems to me just basic and just like, doesn't everyone do this? And it seems to be, the things that people recognize always really surprise me. So I do find that, also looking towards connecting with others, again, a small gesture, a hug, a pat on the back, just some kind of, greeting, it can really change somebody's day, which can change, many people's days. So I agree that, staying outside of yourself in difficult times, reaching out for help, and then again, knowing that just the little things that you can do can make a big difference to how you feel about yourself, but also to how other people are feeling. So that would be, that's something I'm still surprised about.
Well, that's wonderful. Ladies, thank you, Dr. Carlile, Dr. Dubiel, for spending some time with me and with all of the viewers who will come in contact with us around the world. One never knows who's watching, who's listening, what they'll remember. So again, look at the role now, even more of the impact of influence you're having through technology during all of these strange times in the world right now. So cheers to laying hold of the moment.
Thank you for letting us have this opportunity.
Yes, thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, audience, thank you for joining us for the impact of influence. With me again has been Dr. Mary Carlile and Dr. Randi Dubiel. Both were with Baylor, Scott and Wire, Baylor University Medical Center, Baylor Institution for Rehab, with whatever the changes of the name, based in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area for a number of years. But I also wanted to pass along to you that you can listen to this wherever your podcasts are provided. and through the Hope After Brain Injury podcast, also through their website, hopeafterbraininjury.org, through my personal website, pattifoster.com, PATTIFOSTER.com. So thank you, Dr. Carlile, Dr. Dubiel, and audience. May you be blessed with hope to persevere and not give up. Thanks.